I really enjoyed the Infernal Machine. So first of all, congratulations on this film.
Thank you. It's a pretty cool. Yeah, it's cool, isn't it? I like
Yeah.
it.
So first of all, of course, you play the role of Bruce Cogburn, this isolated, paranoid, morally gray writer. I'm curious, from whom or what did you draw inspiration in order to get inside of the mind of this character?
Well, it was purely the script. It really was what Andrew had penned. I mean, Andrew's a wonderful writer, and it just felt very clear to me on the page when I was reading the script who this guy is. So I didn't have to go and sort of seek any external, anybody that I knew or that I knew of in order to sort of to find him. It was clearly there. So, which to me is always the best way to start work. If I'm having to go and find some inspiration, it's because usually there's something missing for me in the translation of that character on the page. But I felt like he was all completely there.
Was there anything particularly challenging about either filming any of the scenes or just taking on the character?
Well, without giving too much away, crawling across a boiling hot sort of city courtyard on my bare elbows was pretty hard, I have to say, but enjoyable at the same time. I think with any sort of character study or any character that's particularly going through a sort of trauma or some kind of downfall, it's the difficult work or the real work, I think, is just getting those beats right, particularly because we shoot it all out of order. So, if at some level the anxiety for the character is here, and earlier prior to that it's here, you've just got to find where those right places are that honor the story, but also keep our audience engaged. So that to me is always the work, is just tracking a character through a story, as I say, particularly because we shoot it out of order,
Yeah, and obviously filming took place in Portugal. Even though the movie takes place in the US, it still represents this deserted, kind of middle of nowhere atmosphere pretty well. What was your experience like being on set?
It was wonderful. I'd never been to Portugal before. And it really was just, the people there were delightful and joyous. The weather was gorgeous, and I was working on something that was fantastic. It was a great script, and Andrew's great to work with, and Sarah, our cinematographer, is a lovely lady, and it was just a really positive experience. I really enjoyed it. It was funny actually, because only months before I had done a film that was also set on the sort of Mexican-American border, but further east in kind of Texas, El Paso, but we filmed that in Bulgaria. So I'd done these two films in Europe that were both set in the southern part of America, but we didn't shoot them there. But the good thing is I've spent time in those places. So at least I felt, at least I was like, I know where this is meant to be. I had some confidence about where it was meant to be set, where they were both meant to be set. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm also curious, you don't have to get into spoilers if you don't want to, but did you sympathize with Bruce at all throughout his journey in the film, or did playing him kind of change your perspective on anything?
I did sympathize with him, absolutely. And I think I always have to as an actor. It's an interesting, you pose the question better than most people. They usually say, do you like the character, or did you not like the character? But to sympathize, I think, is a more appropriate view of a character when you're playing them, because I think even if the character is behaving in a particular way that is pushing out and avoiding, vulnerability and avoiding responsibility and avoiding all those things, you still, as an artist playing them, and hopefully as an audience watching them, you still should find some sympathy for them, I think, in order to, well, one, just because that's humanity, and that just, I think, is how we should function in the world, is to have empathy for others. But two, I think it makes I think it makes the experience of watching a character, even if they're doing the worst things in the world, that you can't let them go. You something that keeps you, they've got their hooks into you. I remember when we did LA Confidential, and one of the most flattering things that people said to me was, I hated your character so much, but I just also was really rooting for him. I was like, yes, good. That was what I was hoping for. You want people to not take their eyes off you, even if they find some of what you're doing despicable,
Yeah, that's what makes this film so fascinating. And kind of going off of that, as a well-known author, Bruce has a lot of people recognize him and admire him. Obviously, his student Elijah and Dwight Tufford were inspired by him in the most extreme ways. But I'm curious, who have you idolized the most in your career as an actor?
You mean as other actors that I might have idolized?
Yeah, or just anyone else in general.
Well, I mean, there's a whole slew of actors who I sort of have up on a pedestal, like, obviously Brando and Pacino, and I got to meet Robert De Niro once or twice, and that was, I nearly fell over backwards. I find particular actors, and in a more modern era, Philip Seymour Hoffman and Gary Oldman and Edward Norton and, Tom Hardy and Michael Fassbender, who I got to work with both back to back in 2011, where I'm completely flummoxed by what they do. I can't get a grip on what they do. They're ephemeral and they're unpredictable and they're just exciting and totally believable. Whereas I can get a bit caught in my own head and where I'm trying to sort of work everything out. But I can be a bit of an analytical actor, and I'm really, even my partner Carice, I find, is an extraordinary actress. And on some level, I don't think she even knows what she's doing, but she's amazing at what she does. So I find I'm really enamored by those kinds of actors, and I really have a great respect for actors who are out there working really hard, because I do think another part of the job is about good hard work and being responsible and learning your lines and turning up and really maintaining a great work ethic. So I have a real admiration for that too, but that I can understand. And I do it myself. That I can control that. Whereas the other stuff, as I say, the Brandos of the world, the Tom Hardys and Michael Fassbenders of the world, where I just go, I'm at a loss to what it is you're doing, and I can't take my eyes off you. It's incredible. I really, on some level, I'm inspired by them, and on another level, I just think, well, I might as well give up. I can't do what they can do, so why keep going? But of course, that's a bit of a negative attitude. So I try not to maintain that.
Yeah. So going back to the film now, we hear Bruce reiterate that a protagonist must reach a cathartic realization about who they are or what they believe in by the end of their story. So in your opinion, what was Bruce's realization?
Well, this is a tricky one without giving the film away. But ultimately it's about being truthful, I suppose. It's about being true to yourself. We and as an actor, I understand falling victim to this, and I understand where acting comes from, because on some level we all have the ability to act. We all have the ability to be something we're not, to act like something that we're not. And my job, in fact, just highlights that. But I think we can fall into the trap of, it's also a tricky part of psychology, because, I think, and the Dalai Lama would even say, you've got to fake it till you make it. So if you want to be a good person, then start acting like a good person and you will eventually become a good person. I think we're all born good anyway, but if there's behavioral stuff in your life and that's negative and difficult and painful for other people, that you want to try and sort of extricate yourself from, you've got to start behaving in a better way. Is that truthful? Is that telling lies? What is that exactly? And I think for Bruce, he's sort of lived, he's hidden himself away from the world. as we see in the film. He's isolated and he's this, odd kind of cranky, he's just imploding basically. So I think for him to finally just face up to the truth is a very simple kind of idea, but I think that's probably the crux of it.